Changing things up a little bit this time with a slide guitar lesson. This is put together mainly for those of you who have never played slide before, or maybe you bought a slide and messed around with it for a bit and found yourself kind of baffled about what to actually do with it to get a good sound. So I'm going to cover 3 or 4 things that you absolutely have to know and think about in order to get into this style of playing. Well worth the effort because there are just so many cool things that you can do with the slide on the guitar that you can't do with a regular standard approach to playing. So this guitar is set up with somewhat heavier than normal strings, including a wound G string. The action is raised a little bit to allow me to dig in a bit with the slide without bottoming out on the frets. And currently it's tuned to an open D tuning, which means string 6 is tuned to a D, then A, then D, then F sharp, then A, and another D on top. Okay, that all adds up to a D major chord, and I can use the slide then to get a full chord by laying it across the fret like this and covering all 6 strings. So it's a great way to get into some really surprisingly simple and very cool sounding chord licks, because everything that's part of the chord is going to sound good, and then a lot of the notes that you'll use to connect are either 1 or sometimes 2 frets below those notes or 1 or 2 frets above. But anyway, just playing the chord like this sounds really cool. So one of the most important things to deal with right away is to figure out for yourself, and you can actually change this up a lot depending on what you want to play, song, style, so on. But you want to make a decision about which finger you think the slide is going to fit comfortably on and allow you to do whatever else you're trying to do with your hand. If I'm playing a tune where I'm playing chords, and I'm going to be doing a fair number of chords, regular, fretted chords, and in addition to the slide stuff, then putting the slide on your pinky is a pretty cool idea because it allows those fingers to be free for chord playing. If you want to wear the slide on the 3rd finger, you might find it's just a little bit better fit for the slide that you're using. I can still use a couple of fingers for chords. If I really wanted to, I could get the pinky in for some chord playing as well. So that option is still there. You'll see people, and in my experience, it's people who are mostly going to play only with the slide and not worry too much about chords, although, again, you could get something going with the 1st and 3rd fingers. What I've never seen is anybody playing serious slide with the slide on the index finger, and it's not because the notes don't work. You can definitely make that happen, but if you watched my hand carefully in the examples I played up to this point, you might have noticed that there are a lot of times where I'm letting my 1st finger kind of trail along the strings behind the slide. That's a muting technique to keep those strings from ringing too much and kind of muddying up the sound I'm trying to get. So anyway, first point, figuring out how to wear the slide. I really am a fan of wearing it not all the way down on the finger so you can, keep the finger at right angles. And again, that will let you keep your palm close to the neck and your wrist pretty straight. That's a very comfortable hand position. Okay, a lot of good stuff comes from that. Now, the second thing to think about is that you don't want to really put any pressure on the strings using the slide. This is a pretty heavy brass slide, and if I really wanted to just kind of let it go, I could bottom it out against the frets, but it would sound god-awful if I did, so don't do that. So the thing is that when you play with a slide like this, the weight helps the slide just to rest on the string. It'll apply just the least little bit of pressure to keep solid contact between the side of the slide and the strings. Okay, without bottoming out or getting a lot of fret rattle or anything else coming into your sound that you really don't want. So, okay, so very, very, very light pressure. Now, the third thing you got to think about is playing in tune. if I go to, say, the 12th fret on the first string here and play that note, of course, what's really going on to get that note is the contact between the string and the fret. That's where the note is. All my finger's doing, of course, is applying a pressure to the string so that I can get that contact. Now, if I make the mistake of putting the slide where my finger was, I'm not going to get the note I want to hear. It's going to be really flat. Need to come up to the 12th fret, right above the fret, okay, in order to get those notes to sound in tune. So that's true of everything you want to do. If you're playing a chord lick, okay, which is a lot of fun, then the slide's mainly going to sit above that chord. But if you want to play a melody, for instance, along the neck, here's a scale. I'm going to go to string 2, start on the open string, 2nd fret, 3rd fret, 5th fret, 7th fret, 9, 10, and 12. Okay, so when I do that with the slide, what I want to do is get this, again, the slide directly above that fret so that what you hear is, okay, and then back down. Okay, now you can slide into the notes if you want. This is cool. But again, the idea is you, in order to get the notes to come in tune, then you have to be directly above the fret. Okay, watch videos of slide players on stage or in the studio, and you'll see they rarely take their eyes off the hand wearing the slide because, oh, there's so many places to be wrong and only a few to be right. So look out for that. Okay, the next thing then to think about after playing in tune, wearing the slide, applying very, very light pressure, is what to do about getting the sound with your picking hand. So you may not have been paying too much attention to this hand so far. People who have seen some of my previous videos know that I play fingerstyle a lot. And so in this case, one of the real advantages of that is that I can use my thumb much of the time for string blocking or muting or string damping, some people will call it. So for instance, if I'm playing this, you can see my thumb is stable. It's just sitting here lying across strings 3, 4, 5, and 6. That means as I move the slide back and forth, those strings are going to be muted. I'm not going to hear any extra noise from them. Now, as I move across here, I'm still doing most of my picking with my index and middle fingers, but my thumb will kind of move across towards string 6 or come back, depending on where I need it to be and how many strings I need to mute. So now, when I move my thumb across, I'll often bring in maybe my middle finger, possibly my ring finger, to sit on these top strings, and again, like that. You can also, of course, pick with your thumb. So anyway, this is probably kind of confusing. Now remember, it confused the heck out of me when somebody first tried to explain it to me. But you can do a lot with just your thumb and your index finger, so I think that's a good place to start. And then at first, you know, as you're playing, just strumming chord, you don't need to worry about any of this right hand or picking hand muting stuff. But the more you want to be able to pick notes out and play melodically, the more you really have to think about keeping the other strings quiet so that that string can sing out the way you want. Okay, so let's sum up a little bit. What we've got going on is, how are you going to wear the slide? Any finger is good, even the first finger if you really wanted to, except, again, you lose some of the muting possibilities. I do recommend, again, positioning it on your finger so that your finger can bend more or less at right angles. That's going to let you play with your hand closer to the neck and your wrist straighter. I like using a slide that's long enough to cover all 6 strings. But again, that's a matter of personal preference. This one obviously is a piece of brass, and it's flared so that it's larger at one end. That's nice. For instance, if you have larger fingers, you can, you know, put the the bigger end of the slide on the fatter fingers, or you can deal with the fact that the sides of this are flared a little bit. I really like that feature because the strings are not flat. You know, the strings are rarely flat on a guitar. They follow a radius or a curve, and having the flare in the sides of the slide allows me to be able to get good contact between the slide and the strings, again, with absolutely minimum pressure. Okay, so wearing the slide, minimum pressure, lining up with the fret to play in tune, whether you're playing a chord or playing along a string, and then working with whatever combination of fingers you like with your picking hand in order to be able to sound the strings. One thing that I didn't mention about the fingerstyle that's really cool is that, like anything with fingerstyle, you can get notes sounded at exactly the same time. Which is a cool sound. You can always break them and play them individually. And then you've got all these cool possibilities for being able to mute and keep the other strings that you don't want to hear quiet. Okay, so anyway, I hope I haven't scared you off the whole idea of playing slide. There's always a pretty steep learning curve when you're getting started, and most of what you do in the beginning isn't going to sound like it makes a whole lot of sense to you, but it's a really, really cool way to play. It just shows that, that the guitar really is virtually unlimited. Really the coolest instrument in the universe. And so anyway, I encourage you to give it a try and have some fun with this, because it's just a lot of fun. All right.